Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Cybersecurity Recruiter podcast. Today, I'm joined by Dave Anderson. How you doing, my friend?
Good. How are you doing?
Yeah, we're all right, mate. It's been a steady week all round, really. We've had a bit of a surge of madness where it was probably a little bit too hectic, and I was thinking we needed to maybe hire some people internally, but it's calmed down a bit now, which I'm actually secretly quite happy about. But I know it won't last, so yeah, it's probably a nice time to do a podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. But thanks for coming on, Dave. I'm looking forward to getting into your journey. I've seen a few bits on LinkedIn and you post good content consistently. And I know how hard that is to do. You have to stay disciplined to do that. I've done it myself for many years and it's easy to do it now and again, but to be as consistent as I see you are, it's not always easy, mate, is it, when things get hectic?
No, and to be completely honest, I actually have someone helping with that. That helps from the consistency standpoint because we basically work on the content together. Yeah, and so he manages it. He actually posts it for me. So so it helps tremendously, which is good.
Okay, yeah, no, that is good. The posts are really relevant to your business, so they obviously know the business as well.
Yeah, so it's a guy who specifically focuses on doing cybersecurity, LinkedIn marketing for people. Yeah, he's very, very specific, that works with primarily cybersecurity companies. He knows the business, and I think he actually used to be a recruiter, to be honest. I think he was recruiting for that space.
Yeah, he definitely knows the business because he's going into some really specific detail about different areas of security compliance. I think either NIST 853 or maybe SOC 2. I saw him talking about SOC 2, and I was like, he definitely knows it.
Yeah, and I help out a lot with the content as well. Definitely is one of those things. Having someone else kind of managing it and figuring out when to put what content out and everything else definitely helps. Definitely helps accountability at the very minimum.
Yeah, definitely. Mate. But so cool, I'm genuinely looking forward to this because you've had a really nice career trajectory, career path. I think you're having and have had a career journey so far that many people listening would love to have had and hope to have it in the future. Came up through quite the traditional route through tech support and sysadmin and various roles like that, and then progressed to security architect role and then management roles, team lead roles, all the way up to CISO and director level roles, places like Greenhouse, which recruiters will be very familiar with. And then your last role as a CISO, you finally made the transition to going out on your own, setting up your own company, TSC Security, and you've been the founder and managing partner there for over 3 years now. And again, there's a really nice story with that. But no, welcome to the show, Dave. I know I've done you a bit of an intro, but I'll start where I always start, which is who are you? What do you get up to? And what's a day in the life of Dave like at the minute?
All right. Yeah, so we work primarily with B2B SaaS companies, generally seed stage. We even have one that's actually as mature as a Series C. And kind of day to day, I got a team of people that are working for me, and we're basically generally collaborating on kind of day to day compliance management. Sometimes we have clients that are undergoing audits. Like we actually have, I think, 3 SOC 2 audits that are in play right now across our customer base. Basically helping them, working with the auditors, doing all the kind of work that the companies themselves don't want to do. And they shouldn't, because they really should be focused on actually building product and running their business versus having to deal with compliance.
Yeah, and imagining a lot of translating the compliance security side into how it benefits them and translating it into kind of business speak for them, because some of them are having to do it because they really do have to, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, cool. All right, wicked. So, when you started, you made the leap from being an employee to an employer. Can you tell us exactly how scary that was? And then there's a bit of a unique story when it comes to you. So maybe you could dive into that as well, because I think it'll be quite good for the listeners to hear that. There'll be people listening that are maybe thinking about starting their own business in the future. Maybe they've started their own. Maybe they're at a similar stage to you. But it'd be nice to hear how you made the leap and what went down.
Yeah, so some of what I did in my previous roles was not necessarily to go down this road, but maybe eventually what had ended up happening is actually things happened a lot faster and earlier than originally planned. I was living in New York, partner, and we had a boat in New Jersey, 40-foot sailing monohull. New York's shut down and the city's quiet. Let's try actually staying on the boat for a while. And went down. It was in New Jersey. Really enjoyed actually just working from the boat. And as things were starting to open up again, and the weather was getting a little chilly into September, beginning of October, And it was the New York, New Jersey area. That's when temperatures drop. Being on the water is not necessarily as comfortable and everything because it still starts getting pretty cool at night. So we were like, we had to sell our apartment in New York for other reasons. Basically, we were by a major intersection in the city, and there was a 2-story building there. And that 2-story building, if that building got replaced by a larger tower, we wouldn't have a view anymore. So we're like, okay. We found out that the anchor tenant of that 2-story building did not renew their lease. And time to sell. So let's get out before our property value drops. So we decided actually to go down to warmer weather. We moved the boat down to Florida, lived down there for about a little more than a year. And we really liked the lifestyle, decided to upgrade to a bigger boat, which is what I'm on right now. The plan was originally to just continue to work, and everything was still remote. The company I was working for at the time really had no intention of opening up any offices or going back to working full time. They had a New York office, but they really weren't using it. And there was a possibility they might have reopened it. I think they actually ultimately did. But fast forward about 2 years, maybe, we decided that why don't we actually take a couple years off and go cruise through the Caribbean? One of those kind of bucket list items. We're still young, and we set everything up to do that. Decided to leave my full-time job because we're going to take the 2 years off. Because I'm crazy like that, and I didn't want to not work, I decided, why don't I start up a consulting company and hopefully be able to bring in a few clients here and there, just so we're not burning through all of our savings, actually going through the Caribbean. And basically, first year was great. Had 2 clients, not a ton of work, but it was enough to pay the bills, which was amazing. And then as we got down to the Southern Caribbean, we got down to Grenada, which is where I'm actually at right now, because you have to come to Grenada for hurricane season, or at least that's what's advisable. Decided that I'm starting to get more referrals and more people coming, asking me to help them out with their security and compliance programs. So I was like, you know what? This actually is like a viable business. I really set it up just as a side gig, so to speak. And here back then, which was almost 3 years ago now, I think I had 3 clients that summer. And now I think we're at 19 right now. And gone from it just being me to hiring 3 information security analysts that basically help do the day-to-day in maintaining security programs and compliance programs for our clients, and have another couple other people in the business to help out with other things. So it's been quite the growth trajectory in the past few years.
You make it sound so easy.
I wish it was that easy. Because to be honest, like there's a joke. If you own your own business, you can choose what day you work as long as it's all 7 of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So there's definitely a lot of overhead, a lot of things that I never actually thought I would ever be doing, like accounting and bank recs. And like, why is my bank account not reconciling my accounting system? I had to deal with that actually. That was 2 weeks ago. I finally figured out what it was, and it was just I did something stupid in the accounting system, so it wasn't actually like lining up. But another 3 hours of time just on something. That's one of the things with running your own company is you end up learning a lot of new skills that you never thought you would actually have before. One thing was thankfully working in security and as a head of security CISO for smaller startups like Greenhouse and Particle. It gave me a lot of experience on the sales side, because one of the things that you very quickly learn, actually just in general, I think that CISOs across the board experience this, is that it's a sales role. Yeah, you're managing security, you're managing your team that is handling security and compliance and everything. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you're there not necessarily to protect the business. That's a side gig, really, at the end of the day, when it comes to being a CISO at a startup. You're brought in on so many sales calls, so many contract reviews, so many things. You become best friends with the general counsel and the sales team. Yeah. So it's quite the thing, which was definitely really helpful from a sales perspective, because I learned a lot about that.
Yeah. Dave, I know you said you make it sound easier. And by the way, I totally know it's not. And to go from 3 clients to 19 is very good. To have hired 3 analysts already with more in the pipeline, again, is really good. There's loads to unpack with what you said there. It'd be nice to get into your startup experience and maybe the people that are planning to go out on their own, maybe to have, it sounds like getting that experience in another startup first, it really stood you in good stead. The referral piece is really interesting. So you went out, you said the first year you had a couple of clients, it was going well. You said by your own admission, you weren't necessarily breaking any records, but things were getting paid more and things were going well. But then you got some referrals in, and again, you've got up to this 19 clients. Have they all been through referrals, or has it been a bit of a split, new biz and referrals?
It has pretty much been 100% referrals. Been
wow.
like occasionally, I think I have one client that somebody had reached out to me on LinkedIn, and that was, but I think it was like, yeah, I'm not 100% sure. It was a while ago. But I
Yeah.
think it may have even been a referral from
Okay.
somebody. Hey, somebody else mentioned you, and I should reach out.
Yeah, cool. That's brilliant because, yeah, the cost of getting 19 clients through traditional methods, the time cost and the cost associated with that would be absolutely massive. Any tips for me and for the listeners on how to get so many referrals?
Well, actually, it was a bit of a unique situation, I think. My first client was actually a Y Combinator incubated company. And they have an internal forum, and the Y Combinator founders really communicate with each other a tremendous amount. It's just something that Y Combinator instills among their portfolio company. They have an internal forum that I guess people were asking about VCSOs and kind of security help. And he asked me, do you mind if I post your information there? And I was like, yeah, no problem. And that's where a lot of referrals came from, was the forum's called Bookface. And he's like, all these Bookface posts, then let's try to get another referral from that. And then one person commented about how they actually liked working with me and everything. And another one came, and another one came, and another one came. And I got connected with somebody else who actually runs basically marketing, like venue-based marketing for startups, and actually on a podcast, on the whole thing. And he had actually been helping with that as well, and actually widening that referral network of Y Combinator founders, which has been a tremendous source of our clients. It's from other sources, but the YC referrals are definitely, I would say, the bigger driver.
Yeah,
And
cool. Yeah. Do you know what I was going to say there? Like a massive factor is, like you mentioned it there, it's like you said that they liked you and they liked working with you. That is like such a key. Like, obviously, yes, you're doing a good job and you're providing a good service, but if people like you and they remember you, like I saw a stat once that said something like your financial success or your business success, like something like 80 something % of it is tied to your personality. If you've got a nice way about you, like you'll go a long way. It makes a difference. Cool. So yeah, that's great, Muffin. So it sounds like getting that exposure within that community was really helpful.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's kind of phase of what we're working on, is we don't want to be dependent upon referrals just because they come in dribs and drabs. There's times where I'll go 3 months without a referral, and then all of a sudden I'll have 4 referrals like popped onto me in the course of a few weeks, which makes scaling the business a little more challenging. And because if you end up having to onboard 4 new clients all at the same time, thankfully, a lot of times they have very similar needs and very similar types of things you deliver to them. But it makes it hard to make a single client a priority. Whereas if you actually had things coming in a normal pipeline and be able to onboard 2 new clients a month, then be able to make those clients feel a bit more special.
Yeah, I find that across different clients as well. Like, even if clients think that their needs are really unique and only specific to their business, it's amazing how often they're not, and the same sorts of problems crop up again and again.
Yeah.
But yeah, cool. When you were in the various different startups, is there anything you can tell us about that you learned then that really helped you now that maybe other people just aren't aware of, that haven't been in that environment?
I would say, I mean, it definitely, working at a startup teaches you some valuable lessons about resources and what needs to get done versus what can get done. You can do anything, but you can't do everything.
Yeah.
And I think working at a startup really teaches you those limitations, because you generally don't have a big budget. You don't have necessarily a large team or anything like that. So you learn to be a little bit more scrappy and like figuring out the more efficient ways of getting stuff done, and also not letting perfect be the enemy of good enough. And like understanding like that it doesn't have to be 100%.
Yeah, definitely. I think COVID taught us a lot of that. I know for a fact a lot of businesses were started during COVID. The remote piece really came in. I feel like since COVID as well, I know a lot of businesses starting out used to maybe pretend to be a lot bigger than they were to try and win clients in the early days and stuff like that. But I feel like these days, fairly sizable companies will deal with a small company if they believe in you and they think you're good enough. I think they don't really mind if it's 3, 4, 5. I know from my own experience, I'd be interested to hear from your side, Dave, but I found that a lot of companies actually quite like the fact that we are so small because they know that we'll give them more attention, care more. Whereas if they
Right.
go to an agency with 4, 5, 600 people, they don't really know what they're going to get. So I feel like it's this new era, this post-COVID business era. People quite like the smaller guys and the smaller girls, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. You get a lot more personalized attention. And
Mm.
like when you do have those things that kind of color outside of the lines a little bit, that the smaller firms are more likely to be able to give you that attention that you might need that a larger firm might not be able or willing to do.
Yeah, cool. Cool. So yeah, I'm sure you're making it sound easier than it is, but it sounds like it's been quite a nice transition. It sounds quite organic. It just sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'd always had the kind of the dream of actually starting my own company and running up my own business. So it's actually been an easier transition than I was expecting. And I think, like I was saying, working at a startup and everything, like I think that really trained me because I learned, especially once I moved into leadership later in my career, I learned a lot more about how business works, how to handle things like managing budgets, understanding sales and forecasting, and having the understanding of running a business versus just having a product and having a
Mhm.
service. And I think there's a lot of people that they decide to go into the type of business and just don't have the understanding. It's okay, but this is a consulting business or you're selling kind of services based products, but you're still running a business at the end of the day. And be a point where the business is going to grow beyond what you can handle yourself. And you have two choices in that. Okay, do you just not take on more clients and not continue to grow, or you find ways of scaling the business? And I think was another thing that I learned working at startups, especially being on ones that were early stage and growing with them, going from like 10th, 20th, 30th employee all the way up to the company grew up to 150 or more. Seeing those scalability issues that happened, understanding that as companies grow, you're going to hit walls in particular areas. And you have to understand how to break down those walls, how to build systems and processes and everything. So you can expand the business beyond just being a kind of one person consulting shop. That was one of the things that I'm very happy that I learned working in startups was hopefully knowing when to identify it ahead of time. And that was one of the things that helped me grow the company over the past couple of years was knowing that those things were around the corner and knowing how to identify them and being able to make sure that there was process in place and people to execute on that process. That definitely it's still been a challenge. It's not perfect, especially when you're dealing with people at the end of the day. You have to learn how to do these things. And it's a rewarding challenge because when you actually can see like the companies grow or the company growing, your employees growing and being able to actually bring on a client, for the most part, hand it over to one of my information security analysts and have them essentially run the program with very minimal oversight for myself. That's a very rewarding outcome.
Yeah, it is, David. And yeah, I think as well, though, you have a really good understanding, I think, of what it means to set up a business and get started. Like you said, ultimately, it's a sales role and having those
Mm-hmm.
relationships there, having a bit of a network, that really does make life a lot easier. Because I can imagine a lot of people go out and maybe just spend so much time perfecting various different things that ultimately don't move the needle. But if you've got a network and you've got relationships and you can get 2, 3, 4 good people around you, all of a sudden you're
Yeah.
rocking and rolling. Things are looking sweet.
Yeah. And not everything's been perfect. I definitely have blown a tremendous amount of money on various different efforts to try to grow the business or remediate issues that I might be having. And you have wins and you have losses. And hopefully the wins outnumber the losses. And so far, that's been the case.
Yeah, I think as well is what you mentioned about the scalability challenge. If you're running a business like we're really small as well, and it's if you and yeah, we have challenges as well, but I know what you're saying. Like for the most part, if you've got some relationships and you've been doing it for a while and people know that you can
Mm-hmm.
do it, basically. I'm the same as you. I'm not saying it's like all easy, but it does get easier. But I always think in my head, like if you do decide to go to, you mentioned 250 people about 5 minutes ago. That to me just petrifies me. Sounds like you've seen that, so it might not be as scary for you. But to me, like to stay small and maybe go to 10, 12 people like that, I can see that in my head quite easy. But 250, I just can't quite imagine. What was that like?
In the beginning, you get to know everybody in the company. And there's a certain point that you don't, and which is just, it's kind of weird. So it's like a new person. It's like I have no idea who they are as I see their names coming through and everything. The company that grew that to that point was Greenhouse.
Okay.
And I was employee number 35 there and
Oh,
came
wow.
in actually doing more systems engineering, like slash DevOps type of stuff. And because I'd done security things in the past, ended up basically taking over when we started getting more and more due diligence from our clients on the security front. And we needed to build a formal security program. We needed to get SOC 2 and we needed to do all those things. And then at the same time, after like shifting more towards security, as the company was growing, we were actually needing IT. So I have no idea how or why, but I ended up with IT as well. It's basically
Yeah.
what I ended up growing with the company as the head of security and IT. And that was actually one of the things that I actually enjoyed in some respects working there because being the head of IT, even though I had engineers working for me, as the company was growing, I actually got to meet everybody coming in for the most, which was a unique but very rewarding kind of experience. Because prior to that, when we started bringing new people in, we were growing pretty rapidly. I didn't know who a lot of these people were.
Yeah.
And it ended up meeting in different ways, like around the office and everything. But it
Yeah.
was once we took over, actually, like starting building the IT function and everything, having that exposure to all the new hires was actually really nice. So it actually
Yeah.
made growing in the company a little less scary, I guess, from that perspective.
Yeah, I think like maintaining the standards and the service levels of the culture as well, that will make a difference. I've heard like really big companies and the founder still meets everyone. I've had it with some of my clients, like quite big clients, and the final is actually with the founder, and it does make a lot of sense.
Yeah. And then also it makes it a good final gate for
Yeah.
making sure that you're bringing people in that have the right culture as well.
Yeah, definitely. We're talking about bringing people in there on hiring. So you've done a bit of hiring for yourself so far. So you've hired your first three analysts. I know you said you've got two more in the pipeline. There'll be people out there that are listening. There's a lot of people on the market and there'll be people out there struggling. As a business owner, founder, leader, what do you look for in people when you're going out to market that could help people listening?
Definitely show that you can be dynamic. That's especially when you're working for a small company or a startup, you need to be able to think on your feet. You need to be flexible. The concept of that's not my job doesn't exist at a startup or a small company. Sometimes you get tasked with doing some stuff that just completely is outside of your wheelhouse. You may not even know how to do it, but chances are the founder or the person asking you, if they know how to do it, chances are they're just too busy or something along those lines
Mhm.
and are more than happy to help you because they just don't have the bandwidth to do it themselves. But that's probably the number one thing is to like be dynamic, be open to a lot of different things. And you'd be surprised. You actually end up learning a lot of things you wouldn't necessarily think you would have learned.
Yeah, I think in a startup, like you said at the start, anyone that comes in as that's not my job, they're not going to last too long.
No,
In a startup.
absolutely.
Cool. So dynamic and be flexible, especially in a startup environment. Anything else that you'd look for that could help folks, Dave? Or
It really depends upon what I'm hiring for.
okay,
If I'm hiring for the information security analyst, I want to see if they've invested in their career in ways like getting certifications. It really depends on what experience they have because the two people that I initially hired didn't really have a ton of experience. One of them did have some the software security space, which didn't translate 100% to the compliance side of the things that I was hiring for. But having that security foundation, which was ultimately the important part, was incredibly helpful. She actually did a bunch of certifications like pen testing and other software security type of things, which has been really helpful for both of us as my company has grown because she's been able to hop in when clients have application security needs and things like that. She has the basic knowledge, and her and I can collaborate and work together to help these clients build these application security programs and security programs. And then anybody else, I pretty much want to make sure that they do have some sort of solid foundation if they don't have a lot of experience. Another person on my team, basically former graphic designer, started studying, got the Security Plus, and was doing a lot of other kind of online training and kind of like hack the box and types of stuff like that to learn the technical side of security as well. And he's grown tremendously in the same respect. So for having invested in yourself, whether you're experienced or entry level, as well as just having that drive to constantly improve yourself and come forward with that. Because that's my experience when I was hiring back with different startups and everything. was that I needed people that could be dynamic, people that wanted to learn, people who wanted to improve. And hopefully we would be able to provide an environment that they could thrive in.
Yeah, because I think as well, like flexible, dynamic, I feel like these days, like that's probably, yes, it's vital for a startup, but I feel like just to actually take on the world, you need to be quite flexible these days. Like I always think with AI, like where is business going to be in 5 years with AI and the pace that everything's moving? Anyone that says they know, I don't know if they really do. It's moving so quick. So like we've probably all got to be pretty adaptable these days.
5 years, I think what's going on right now is I don't even know what's going to be in 5 months.
It's insane. Because some days I'm sat there with AI and I'm like, God, this is going to change everything. Then other days I'm like, that wasn't as good as I thought. Neither was that. The theory on that sounds great. The reality is terrible. So some days I'm like, it's not going to change anything. And other days I'm like, oh, maybe it is. But yeah, like the truth is, I'm probably like that because if we're really honest, I don't think anyone's quite sure at the minute, are they?
No, and the ways that AI has already changed just how business operates. I keep seeing these things as, oh, the AI bubble is going to burst. And I think there's a bit of excited investment in AI technologies, new applications of AI in the workplace and just in business in general. But I don't think it's going away. No. I definitely would be very upset if you took like ChatGPT away from me. Because I mean, it's one of those things like I was just talking to one of my employees about it yesterday. If I have a thought that I just need to basically be blown out into a couple of paragraphs, then I throw it in ChatGPT and I may use it, I may not. Sometimes it's okay, that helps clear out what I was thinking and help me rationalize my thought process. Or sometimes it ends up being just another viewpoint in a way. It's become too valuable to me on a daily basis to be able to not have that anymore. And I think that's the new normal. Yeah. Like on the iPhone now, like if you were to ask Siri a question, it has no idea, which 9 times out of 10 it doesn't. Would you like me to search ChatGPT? And we're like, okay. Like, why didn't you just do that to begin with? It should just be like a direct ChatGPT interface.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's like it comes into every part of your life as well, Dave, doesn't it? Like I was at my friend's villa the other night and he just got a new villa and he's got a nice bar in it, and he took a picture of his bar with all the spirits behind the bar and basically said, put the picture into ChatGPT and said, make me this type of cocktail, give me a recipe for this. And so it's creeping into everything. I was like, wow, I can't believe we're using ChatGPT to basically get drunk.
Yeah, I never thought of actually using it. Okay, yeah, I got all this. These are the things I have in my refrigerator. It's what can I make for dinner tonight?
Yeah, definitely. I think as well, I was thinking about how much Google usage must have gone down because loads of stuff that I would have typed into Google, I just don't anymore. And I know they've got Gemini and all the rest of it, but it definitely would have gone down. I find that the best use case that I've found is making my communication more concise. I find it can shorten stuff down better than I can.
Yeah. I mean, that's if I have a lengthy email or something that I'm putting together for a client or whatever it is, I always post this in a ChatGPT and be like, hey, can you take a look at this and make some suggestions? Sometimes I like the suggestions, sometimes I don't. But usually it manages to at least trim a couple things up here and there to make things a little bit more clear, a little bit more concise.
Yeah, it does. It does. We had it on a search and it's a really tight search and there was like a bilingual element to an offensive security role. And we started putting our messaging into ChatGPT and basically just said, make this LinkedIn outreach more punchier and shorter. And then we'd ask you, give us a more direct version. It got us a better response and it's really helped us make you better at getting hold of candidates and stuff like that. It is good. I'm sure there isn't many people still out there ignoring it, but anyone who's ignoring it is crazy.
Yeah. I know people that are just afraid of it when you use it because I don't know why they're afraid of it necessarily or what the thought process is there, but they just don't want to adopt the new technology for some reason.
I think just naturally, some people I would say like maybe not so much like entrepreneurs and founders, but I think like probably the majority of people do resist change and they we've always done it this way and stuff like that. I think maybe if you've been in startups or as an entrepreneur, you're probably used to having to flex that muscle and pivoting and stuff like that. So you're probably more used to it. But I think if someone's maybe been in the same position for, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 years and it's always been that way, maybe it's harder for them to adjust.
Not sure that makes sense.
Just going back to the hiring piece there, you said that your member of staff that she's just started and she's got loads of certifications. I think for people listening, like even if certifications aren't required, the client or the employer isn't too fussed about them. I think one thing it does show is like if someone's getting a lot of certifications, like the first thing I think as a recruiter is like, okay, he or she's like really on it. They're clearly focused. They clearly care about their progression. They want to move forward. Like, even if the certifications aren't like the be all and end all for that role, like I do look at it and go, yeah, I'm interested in talking to this person because they clearly care.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've done a fair amount of certifications myself. And that's probably one of the reasons that I actually appreciate the amount of effort that has to go into it. Is
Yeah.
you're having to learn this whole bit of new language of how things are done. Because a lot of these certifications, it depends on what they are, but sometimes they're a lot less about the technology and they're more about the process and they're more about policy and things like that. I don't even remember how long ago it was. It's been eons, probably almost like over close to 25 years, maybe, studying for the CISSP. And that one, like literally, it was a book that was probably 800 or 900 pages, and basically reading that book cover to cover to learn a lot of stuff that, frankly, and they've changed the certification since then. So a lot of stuff that, frankly, is that I'm never going to use. There was stuff about like the kind of government level mandatory access controls and different like access control models and things like that that were very much like theoretical outside of the DoD. So really was not incredibly useful. But then there was other ones that I studied for, the CISA, which is the Certified Information Systems Auditor, and CISM, the Certified Information Systems Security Manager. Those actually taught me more about kind of business process and how to build and run security programs and manage security programs and really manage processes and people, not just technology. And I think that was one of the things that kind of helped me evolve from being a technologist into actually the management track and ultimately to running my own business.
Yeah, I think sometimes when you originally learn stuff as well, I don't know if it's the same for you, Dave, but sometimes like I'm learning stuff and I'm like, I don't really see how I'm going to use this. But then maybe years later it kicks in and I'm like, I start applying stuff that I learned years ago. So yeah, you connect the dots later on. But yeah, no, I think there's loads of benefit. Like if someone's been working on an advisory consulting basis or for an MSP and they've been busy and they've been getting certifications as well, they've probably been having to put work in before work or after work, evenings, weekends. And it, again, if someone needs to be flexible and dynamic and do things, and it just shows a certain level of aptitude and willingness. And I just think it tells you a certain amount about a person.
And I spent many hours with my nose in a book. I know it all too well.
Yeah, oh, good. So as we come to the end, I always like to ask which book has had the most positive impact on your, it couldn't be security, it doesn't have to be, it could be like what's made you the best version of yourself, but it could be book, it could be podcast, it could be online content. But is there anything out there that you've consumed that's been really helpful, that could help other folks?
That's a really interesting question. I can't nail it down to a single one. I think there's been so many different things that I think helped shape over the years, as that helped shape the way I approach things, the way where I've taken my career. So it's really hard to nail down like one in particular. There's so many different business books I've written, some that were focused around technology. I mean, there was actually one I think that kind of taught me a lot, that at least cemented a lot, was just running a business or running a product or something along those lines. There was a book called The Phoenix Project by Gene Kim that went over this basically whole kind of, it was like kind of a case study, and so to speak, but even though I think it actually may have been fiction, so I think the project was called The Phoenix Project. Basically, it was this failing project at a company. And that really, the overall arching lesson behind the book was about project management and how to understand that when you have somebody at a company that is the go-to person and they're the only person, and if anything happens, it's got to go through them, and that project is going to be a failure or that company is going to be a failure, what happens when that person is not available? What happens when that person gets burnt out? And what happens ultimately when that person leaves? You're going to be basically stuck like taking this house of cards and putting it back together. And it's not necessarily healthy for you or that other person. So identifying the habit, like when you have a situation like that, because I've been in that situation before where that person, and thankfully after reading that book, it actually opened my eyes and made me realize, wait, I can't do that anymore. I can't, that one go-to person. Yeah, I mean, it's great. It's good job security, but it's not a skill for the company that I'm working for. And it's helped me identify situations where I'm at, and which I think is ultimately me grow as a business person. And that's one of the things I think that'll probably also helps what I was talking about before, like knowing what's around the corner, what the scalability issues are. Because if the scalability issue is me, if I'm the one that's always having to do the things, then that's an area that needs to be improved.
Yeah, you're right. Some days it seems fine, but yeah, like I say, it definitely can't go on forever. No.
Right now, it's my company. Technically, it should go through me, but I do want to scale beyond that to a point where like I don't have to be involved in everything, because that's the only way I can scale because I'm only one person. So clones of myself, who knows? Maybe with the new AI, I can actually create an AI clone of myself that can run the business, but I don't think we're quite there yet.
Yeah, we talked about that 5-year thing. Maybe in the next 5 years, we'll have a little Tom and a little Dave running around, an AI version of us, mate. Cool. And it's a Phoenix project, and it's about project management. If you ping it over to me, I'll stick it in the show notes when we release this episode. But it sounds good. Cool. All right, mate. Well, thanks for that. It's gone quick, but no, it's been nice chatting and unpacking your journey. And yeah, it sounds good. It sounds like you've been having some fun as well.
Yeah, I definitely have a little bit less fun now that I'm like running a growing business. Try to get in here and there.
Yeah, cool. No, thanks for your time, Dave. Well, thanks again, mate. I've really enjoyed chatting. Thanks, buddy.
Yep, likewise.